Well, economists say one important way of supporting African economic growth is through increasing African engagement with the international economy. For perspective on the volume and quality of U.S.-Africa trade, here's part two of my conversation with J. Peter Pham, Vice President and Director, Africa Center, Atlantic Council. First, I asked him what has been achieved by the African Growth and Opportunity Act, the U.S. Trade Act that is meant to significantly enhance market access to America for qualifying sub-Saharan African countries.
AGOA has achieved a great deal of success. It has raised by several fold, depending on the individual country, the level of trade between Africa and the United States. So insofar as it was meant to increase trade, increase investment, it has succeeded. And it has created hundreds of thousands, about millions of jobs in Africa, but also by statistics from the U.S. government, over 120,000 jobs related to AGOA directly attributable here in the United States. So it's also created American jobs. So it's been a win-win. However, for it to be sustainable over the long term, the next thing is the next AGOA.
Do you see a kind of a place for revision of the program to perhaps make it better, expand it?
I think certainly it has to be changed into a bilateral. Yeah. It has to go both ways, not only opening the U.S. market for African products, but also opening African markets to U.S. products and intellectual protection. Already our European allies and partners are already talking. Earlier in January, the German government, for example, has raised the possibility of a Mediterranean Union, which will allow Egypt and the 4 North African countries to have access to the European Union internal market, with a goal to eventually be having a free trade zone with all of Africa. Currently, the only country in all of Africa that the United States has a free trade agreement with is Morocco, and we've seen that create tens of thousands of jobs in Morocco, and also thousands of jobs in the United States, in states large and small, as a result of the trade between the two. Now we need to figure a way to do this in a measured way with the entire African continent.
And staying with AGOA, some have said that the program has benefited mostly oil-producing companies or petroleum kind of products, but not like apparel in other fields also that would be of greater benefit to the general population.
Well, that certainly at the beginning, one looks at the consolidated data. Yes, the hydrocarbons and other extractives have predominated, but a lot of that was in the early years of the program, also at times when the prices for those commodities were very high. Increasingly now we're also seeing AGOA cover tens of thousands of other items, including light manufactured goods, fast-moving consumer goods, and others increasingly. So I think one has to wait to let it play itself out, but I think it's going to cover over time, once we get the complete data sets, far more.
And now you did mention that actually the only country that has this direct kind of trade deal with the United States is Morocco. Many look at the U.S. and wonder why it's not engaging more as compared to China. China seems to be trading and engaging with almost every African country without any trouble. Do you think perhaps the U.S. needs to kind of start dropping the demands for certain social and political changes in African countries that want to trade with it?
Vincent, I think we need to disaggregate a few things. First of all, China's volume of trade with Africa has certainly grown enormously in recent years. And in fact, since 2009, China has become Africa's largest trading partner in terms of bilateral volume of trade. But what's interesting has been that volume of trade has largely been one way, shipping out of primary resources without the value added to fuel China's own rise as an economic power, and then the shipment of, shall we say, relatively cheap manufactured goods to Africa. In some cases, flooding the African market and competing with local manufacturing. But what's interesting has been that China's investment, when we talk about foreign direct investment, not loans, not road constructions tied to credit, et cetera, but actual investment, putting your own money where your mouth is, putting it at risk. China is a very distant fourth. It's the United States, Great Britain, and France who are the leaders in putting money in Africa, investing in business in Africa, running risks, but also building African economies from within.
Well, tomorrow I'll have part 3 of my interview with J. Peter Pham, looking at the differences between the U.S. engagement in Africa and that of China.